Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I wanted to take this opportunity to update the public on 3 arrests in 4 recent cases. You'll see as I get into some of the details that each one is tragic and indeed disturbing. They're the type of incidents that will understandably cause concern in our communities. Recognizing the distress these incidents have caused, I want to take this opportunity to provide some reassurance to the public. While we appreciate that this news does nothing to ease the suffering of the victims and their families, particularly those now grieving death, I can report that the suspects for all of these incidents are now in police custody. It is my hope that this fact provides at least a sliver of closure for the families. The first incident I'll address is the murder of Kartik Vasadev, 21 years, a student from India who was residing in Canada and attending Seneca College. As the media has reported, Kartik was just outside the Sherbourne subway station last Thursday when he was approached by a man who we believe to have been a complete stranger to him. Unprovoked, this man shot Kartik multiple times, killing him. 2 days later, on April 9th, Elijah Mahipath, 35 years, a resident of Toronto, was murdered as he was walking in the area of Dundas and George Streets in the east end of the downtown core. He too was approached by an apparent stranger, was shot multiple times, and despite life-saving measures, also succumbed to his injuries. In the aftermath of this second attack, our investigators were able to quickly draw a link between the murder of Kartik and that of Elijah. An all-out effort was initiated to track the killer's movements, to identify him, and to arrest him. Working with our city partners, including the TTC and Metrolinx, and utilizing the full resources of our various investigative squads and divisional resources, the suspect was tracked to an address in the area of Spadina and Bloor Street West. The emergency task force entered the suspect's residence, where he was taken into custody on Sunday evening. I can report that this was done safely and without incident, despite the fact that the accused had several loaded firearms on the floor next to him. He has been identified as Richard Jonathan Edwin, 39, of Toronto. He has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Investigators executed a search warrant at the accused's residence and at this time have seized several firearms, including handguns, rifles, loaded magazines, and other ammunition. Given that he had already killed 2 apparent strangers, as we allege, and that a cache of firearms was located in his residence, we can reasonably conclude that the quick work of our investigators has prevented a further loss of life. The next case I want to speak about also happened on April 9th in the area of Eglinton Avenue East and Markham Road. A 28-year-old man was standing on the sidewalk in front of a plaza when he bent down to put some bags on the ground. As he was standing up, the accused male, who we again believe to have been a complete stranger, struck him with an axe on the back of his head, causing severe injuries. He was transported to hospital where his condition, at least at last report, has improved from life-threatening to stable. Immediately following the attack, the suspect fled the scene on foot. With the help of information from the public, investigators located the suspect at a townhouse complex in the Kingston Road and Scarborough Gulf Road area. He too was arrested by our members without further incident. He has been identified as Tristan Terrio, 31, of no fixed address, and has been charged with attempt murder, carry concealed weapon, and weapons dangerous. Lastly, yesterday morning, a 27-year-old woman exited the subway at Yorkdale Station, where she noticed a man whom she did not know walking toward her. The man bumped into her, and when she turned around, the man produced a knife. Fearful, the victim tried to run away, but the accused caught up to her, knocked her to the ground, and stabbed and slashed her with the knife. Thankfully, a TTC worker intervened and restrained the suspect with the assistance of 2 members of the public until the police arrived on scene. I'd like to acknowledge all of them for their bravery. The woman sustained injuries to her upper chest and neck and was transported to hospital for emergency treatment. The accused has been identified as Yasser Mohammed Ali, 37, of no fixed address, and has been charged with assault with a weapon, weapons dangerous, and assault bodily harm. In all of these cases, our officers responded quickly and decisively. I want to thank the many members of the public who came forward to provide information that assisted us in removing these individuals. Each one of the accused males remains in custody at this time. While random attacks like these are generally rare, I'm told that there is no information at this time to suggest that these cases, with the exception of the Sherbourne Street and Dundas Street shootings, for which Mr. Edwin has been charged, are connected. There is also no information to suggest these attacks are anything but random acts of violence. Despite arrests being made, you'll appreciate that these investigations remain in the early stages. I want to take this opportunity to thank the members of the service who have been working around the clock on all of these cases. While each incident is tragic, the community can rest assured that when events like these occur in our city, it brings the best out in our investigators. It was nothing less than dogged and extraordinary effort that led to these arrests. And I'll reiterate for the community that we have no reason to believe there is an ongoing threat to the public as a result of this series of tragic incidents. I have Staff Superintendent Lauren Pogue of Detective Operations and Detective Sergeant Terry Browne of Homicide with me here today, and collectively we will do our best to answer your questions. I want to close by saying that the Toronto Police Service extends its condolences to the loved ones of the two men who were murdered, and we hope the other victims make a quick recovery. Any death is tragic, but these men were completely innocent, and their murders were absolutely random acts of violence. We will continue to support their loved ones throughout this process. Before we take questions on these cases, I just want to acknowledge the unfolding situation in New York this morning. I'd like to reassure the public that we continuously monitor security issues, not just in Toronto, but around the world. In response, we make the appropriate adjustments to our plans in order to mitigate the potential risks to public safety. Given these recent events, we have deployed a greater number of uniformed police officers to public transit. We will continue to monitor the situation and provide updates if necessary. At this time, there is no identified threat to the City of Toronto. In the meantime, we are asking our members and the public to be vigilant. If you see something, say something. Everyone can do their part by contacting police if they see or experience anything suspicious. Thank you. Those are my comments.
We're now going to go to questions. So we're going to go to WebEx first, and then we'll go to the press that are here in person. For those on WebEx, I'm going to call out your name. When you're called on, please unmute your mic at this time only. Please also indicate who your question is for. Chief James Raymer, Staff Superintendent Lauren Pogue, Detective Sergeant Terry Browne. You can ask one question and one follow-up. So we're going to go to Ryan Jones from CBC first. Ryan, do you have a question?
Yes, so this is for whoever is best placed to answer it. Can you just give us some insight into the investigations in terms of how you made a connection between the two murders? Like, at what point did investigators believe there was a connection, and what led you to that belief?
I think I'll get Terry. Terry Browne is in charge of the investigation, can run you through some of that. You just might have to repeat that question.
Yeah, if you could just repeat that one more time, please, and thank you.
Yeah, so I'm just looking for some insight into the investigation into the two murders.
Yes.
At what point did investigators, figure out that there was a connection, and how did you come to that conclusion?
Well, obviously, when the first one happened, our people were on the ground right away and doing as much work as they could with regards to video canvassing and other witness statements that were taken from people on scene. When the second one happened, obviously, we felt very early on that there were some similarities or aspects in both of these things, which is why we were able to connect the dots very, very early just by the nature of the offense. When I say nature, how it was conducted, and what we believe to be the travel that was taken by the suspect, both to and from the actual shootings.
Do you have a follow-up, Ryan?
Sure. It'll be a separate question, I guess, for the chief. Just how is the public supposed to make sense of these random acts of violence like this, and what's your message to reassure them that you're keeping us safe here in the city?
Well, that's quite frankly, it's a difficult question to answer. From the perspective that these are hard to anticipate, and because of the very nature of the type of offenses, they are being random. What I like to comment on is just that you have people that will respond quickly, that will do extraordinary work at the scene. You have a public that is not afraid to intervene at some risk to themselves and to provide information to the police. And collectively, we all make this a safer city. And I think I'll close by saying what I said in my comments is that you have to be vigilant, and if you see something, you have to say something and be aware of the situation. And I think it touches on just what's currently happening in New York City. Like, we have to always be aware of our surroundings, and not to be afraid, but to be aware of our surroundings, and to be cautious and to be vigilant in watching what's happening.
Thank you. We're now going to go to Gilbert from the Star. Gilbert, do you have a question?
Okay. Thank you. Quick question to the chief. I just wanted to know if the police has been in touch with the family of Kartik, the international student, and what kind of support can you provide to a family like that beyond just giving them information about the death of their kid?
Well, I think I'll let Detective Sergeant Browne talk about that because they've been dealing with the family directly.
Good morning again. Yes, they were notified yesterday of the arrest, so they're quite aware of what happened. They were grateful that an arrest had been made. Obviously, they're still going through a lot of grief and pain. With regards to support systems, obviously, we have our victim services that is available here in Toronto, and no doubt they will liaise with the family overseas and keep them apprised on next steps and what's going to be happening from this point on.
Do you have a follow-up, Gilbert?
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to go to Malia from City TV next. Do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Good morning. My question's for the chief. We know that the suspect had some firearms in his home. I'm just wondering if there's any more information you could provide us. Is he known to police? Does he have mental health issues? Is there any more information regarding the suspect?
Well, it's still early. There's a lot of background information that needs to be done, but I can tell you that he has no criminal record, and he was lawfully in possession of the weapons. That's my understanding. That's correct.
And do you have a follow-up?
Yeah.
I do. We know Kartik was a person of color. I'm wondering if the other suspect was a person of color as well, and if this is possibly a hate crime.
I'll let Detective Sergeant Browne speak to that.
I can tell you that they're both visible minorities. I don't know how far you want me to expand on that. We're not really sure with regards to both shootings what vantage point the shooter would have had of the victims anyways with regards to interaction. We know that there was no verbal interaction with either one, and we're not sure whether the shooter actually was able to gain face-to-face sightlines of either one of these victims. So I wouldn't want to speculate on whether someone was targeted based on their background or ethnicity, because we just don't have that information. But certainly from what we saw, any interaction with the shooter and the victims was very, very quick and brief, and we can't say with certainty whether, in fact, he would have been able to see their ethnicity.
Thank you. Okay, we're now going to go to the floor for questions. Again, I'll call your name out. You'll get one question and a follow-up. Please use the microphone on the right-hand side of the room. So Steve Ryan at CP24, do you want to go ahead?
Thank you. Chief, sir, if you can answer this, this question. Last week, your homicide squad effectively used the role of the media to get information out to the public regarding the identity of the remains that were located on Eastern Avenue. And you alluded to the community's assistance in solving these crimes. Can you just speak generally how important the community what role the community plays in helping police solve crimes such as homicides? How important they are?
Well, just in one word, I'd say they're invaluable. I mean, when these events happen without community input and people that are witnessing things, seeing different things, that are checking their cameras that they may have installed and taking an active role, we would just not be as successful as we are. I mean, it's that collaboration, working in tandem with the investigators that helps us come to, to have some success in terms of these arrests. And this one in particular, these two shootings and these two innocent men, that was of particular concern. And I emphasize again today, the extraordinary cooperation between the public and the great work of the investigators, because lives were saved because of this arrest.
And just to follow up to that, if the police put a request out looking for information, and people may be hesitant to notify the police because they might think, oh, the cops might have that information or it might not be important. Could you just speak to how important every piece of information is that the police receive from a tip line? No,
you're absolutely right. I mean, they should never refrain from calling, always call, because your little piece of information you think we might already know, maybe the piece that we don't know. So, I mean, without oversimplifying it, just call, because every tip is helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have Mike Walker from CTV.
Hello, I'm not sure if the chief or the homicide detective can answer this first one. About the homicide on Thursday, we spoke with the family of Mr. Vasadev, and they mentioned that he was shot at least 6 or 7 times. I'm wondering if you can confirm that, first of all.
I certainly hope everyone can appreciate that we're not trying to be evasive, but these are all going to be parts of the investigation and the prosecution that's forthcoming. So it is fair to say that he was shot multiple times, and he was in a defenseless position the whole time.
Okay, and just as a follow-up, sorry if I missed this earlier, can you confirm 2 parts? A, we know these were innocent victims, as you have alleged, but do we have any sense of what the motive is? And the suspects who you arrested, do they have any previous criminal history? Are they known to police?
So the suspect that we're referring to for both shootings, as the chief has already said, has no criminal background. We are doing a very deep dive on his background right now to find out who this person is, where he's been, who he's been associating with. With regards to any contact with either one of these victims, we have nothing to suggest that he knew either one of them. And more importantly, what we believe at this stage anyways, is that it was what we do describe as random. It was a chance meeting, a chance passing, and for reasons that are only known to the suspect, these 2 people were victimized on that day and now are dead.
Thank you. Next up we have Catherine Mcdonald from Global. Go ahead, Catherine.
Hi, Chief. Catherine from Global. If you can tell me, you talked about how you were quickly able to track his movement back to his residence. What role did video surveillance play in this investigation and a quick arrest?
Actually, Catherine, I'd have to turn it over to Terry. I mean, I know videos had a role, but he can give you the step-by-step, or what he's allowed to say anyways. Better than me.
Video surveillance and security plays such a large role in this investigation and so many others. I can't begin to tell you how much it assists us. And so I know when things happen, you hear the same thing over and over. If you have any security video, if you have any dash cam, please contact. We say it because it's necessary. I can tell you right now that what we glean from the security video evidence alone greatly assisted in tracking our suspect, both from the area where he resides to the area of the shooting and then back to his residence. I can't get into what we have obtained and to what degree, but it played a very, very big role in assisting us in this investigation.
Chief, just a follow-up. If what you allege is correct, this man fatally shot 2 innocent people within a span of 48 hours. First of all, how do you know there were no victims prior to this? And do you believe if you hadn't arrested him, we could have been faced with a serial killer here in the city of Toronto?
Well, there will be, in terms of your first question, that's the work the Homicide Squad is doing now and the investigators in terms of determining this man's background and what's happened, prior to these events, if indeed anything has in fact happened. Secondly, my personal opinion is there were going to be more victims. When, I don't know, but he had an arsenal at home, and I quite frankly believe this might have just been the first step.
Thank you. And finally, we have Joe Warmington from the Sun. Joe, go ahead with your question. Yeah.
I got a question for both Chief and for the detective. In my time, I don't recall a case. I'm trying to think of something. The only thing I can think of is the one in Ottawa with Brian Smith, where somebody was shooting at someone for whatever reason. Do you recall of a case like that in Toronto where it looks like it's a random victim that someone's sort of been stalking, if you will, or in a spot to do that? And have I described it accurately?
Well, I mean, I can't speak to the stalking. I mean, we have had random victims in the city of Toronto. We have seen that in some of the different neighborhoods with some of the gang violence. This is a different type of violence that is just indiscriminate again, but targeting individuals for this specific purpose. And again, as I'll just repeat what I said earlier, I think the intention was to continue.
I guess the Danforth is the one that comes to mind. I didn't forget it, but now that you mention it, this is a difficult question, I think, for the detective to answer, but I think it has to be asked, is that, can you give us some insight a little bit on, was this, because you mentioned about the guns were legally, he had them legally, so are we dealing with like shotguns, like hunting guns, or are we dealing with handguns? What can you tell us about that? Because you also talked about it not being right up close, so maybe you can clarify that the best you can.
So aside from the obvious, anytime there are firearms available to anyone is very concerning to all of us in the city here. I will expand to say that there was two rifles that were readily available, and of those rifles, one of them is what I would describe as being able to cause great carnage if used. And I won't go more than that because it's going to form part of our investigation as we move forward. What I will reiterate, though, is the person that's now arrested, Mr. Richard Edwin, we have very limited information on him at this point. And when I say a deep dive is what we're looking into. And so if anyone has any contact or information about this person, please take the time to reach out to us. We'd like to speak to you personally. That's always our preference. If you have trepidation about doing that, go through Crime Stoppers. But we really want to try and figure out the underbelly of this individual and why, if there is a reason why he may have done it on these 2 days, and more importantly to what the chief has already alluded to. What was he planning? Perhaps there was something planned for the future. We don't know that. We do know that it's not going to happen. If something was planned, it's not going to happen, and it's not going to happen because quick action was taken. And when I say quick action, really, really quick action. The way this thing unfolded and the way our ETF were able to get into this person's place and remove him without incident, in my mind, was just remarkable. And as the chief has already said, our deepest condolences to the two families of the people who have lost their lives. We can't bring them back, and we are sorry for that. But I do believe that the actions we took on Sunday to locate and apprehend this individual, I do believe that it potentially could have caused the loss of life in the future.
I think it's important. We know a lot about Kartik, or more about him, but we don't know an awful lot about the second victim. Can you fill us in the best you can?
He's another resident of Toronto. His family is devastated. He was happy-go-lucky. I won't get into his background. He was just coming from running errands like all of us do, grocery shopping, on his way to his next location, wherever that was going to be. And for reasons that are unclear and may never be clear, his life was taken.
Thank you. And that concludes today's news conference. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. A news release will be issued shortly with details of the investigations and the arrest.